Okay, so today is the final session of the summer, and I appreciate all of your dedicated support every week. We're gonna end the summer talking about fueling on the go and when you are short on time. And I wanted to include this because, college students always have a very busy schedule. And then when you're an athlete, it throws even more um, activities into the wrench. So it's going to be, very important key to success when going through your season. So, more on why on the go fueling matters. Because of tight classes and practices and lift schedules, athletes often skip meals or snacks because it can be a little overwhelming or just so busy that you either forget or don't have time, and there's limited access to truly full meals or just not time to sit down in the dining hall or um, you're leaving very early, so there's no time to pack. So, um, being prepared and being proactive about bringing on the go meals or snacks is really important. So, like we know, and I've said many times this summer, that inadequate fueling leads to increased fatigue, reduced performance, and slower recovery. And so, when we think about fueling as well, it's just that consistency being key, and that even small snacks frequently throughout the day, if you don't have the capability to have full 3 meals a day, even just that makes a difference. So the key goals to on the go fueling is to, of course, maintain that energy level throughout the day and keep your blood sugar stable and prevent any sort of drop in energy and fatigue. To support muscle recovery and growth, especially once practices start up and we become a little bit more active and busy throughout the semester than maybe we were in the summer months. To thirdly, to prevent performance dips in those practices in games and to reduce the risk of underfueling and red assist syndrome, which we discussed last meeting, which is all of those negative effects of underfueling and overexercising and not meeting your increased energy needs. So a lot of things will look like quick fuel, not so much those complicated meals that we often see in meal prep and stuff. So when we want to prioritize when creating these meals is to make them balanced. And what I mean by that is having them consist of at least 2 to 3 macronutrients, so protein, carbs, and fats. The 2 or 3 of those. So carbs being for that energy, protein being for muscle repair, and fats for keeping your energy sustained and maintaining your satiety and fullness of those snacks. So, examples may be a quick smoothie in the morning, amped up with peanut butter, a banana, or a protein powder and milk. Um, I have alternative wording now that I'm seeing this, peanut butter and jelly, but I have a turkey and cheese wrap. I must have forgotten to change the photo, but either works. Both are very efficient on-the-go sandwiches. Peanut butter and jelly being an option that doesn't necessarily need to remain cold, and then turkey and cheese if you have that option to keep it chilled. Um, Something even easier being a bar with protein and carbohydrates. These are just a couple of examples of brands I find to be pretty balanced in their macronutrient composition. So Cliff Bars, Go Macro Bars, and 88 Acre Protein Bars, which are actually allergen friendly. And then Greek yogurt with fruit and granola. So just some examples that aren't complicated, take very small amount of time to prepare, and they are both portable. Some being shelf stable and just that grab and go. So, for example, being able to prepare your Greek yogurt or and fruit the night before to grab it in the morning, and same with a sandwich or a wrap. A common theme that I hear from just college students in general, but specifically athletes, is the lack of time for breakfast. And a lot of times, it was a late night or a busy day the night before, and you want to get as much sleep as possible. So we're not prioritizing breakfast as much. But instead of thinking about just skipping it or not prioritizing having time, but to in alternative modifying it to make it simple and to nothing not having to be some complicated or complex meal that's fancy or anything. So a good example being overnight oats that you prepare the night before, or just even those instant packets or the oatmeal cups that all you have to do is add water and wait a couple minutes for it to kind of absorb. Something like a breakfast sandwich or breakfast wrap, again, something that can be made ahead of time, or even prepped in bulk as a freezer meal and warmed up in the morning. Um, like I said before, like a smoothie that again takes just a couple minutes to blend up and can be taken on the go. Um, a bagel, fruit, and a hard-boiled egg, again, things that can be all made ahead of time. And then finally, I like to give the examples of just any sort of leftovers. So say you had extra of your lunch or dinner from the night before. Remembering that breakfast doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional breakfast foods. If you had some leftover rice and chicken from the night before, I mean, who's to stop you from having that for breakfast in the morning? I mean, there's tons of examples that you could, kind of come up with, but I would rather see an athlete walk out of the door even with a piece of pizza, a cold piece of pizza that they grabbed, because technically you still get those carbohydrates, protein and fat from a slice of pizza. I'd rather see someone walk out of the door with that than nothing at all. So, a fact that is very shown or very proven in many, many studies is that athletes who eat breakfast show a better both reaction time, memory, and performance quality. So similarly to that quick fuel, pre-workout fuel is really going to be an essential um, piece to your performance as an athlete, even if you don't have that, again, capability to have a full large meal a couple hours in advance. Then you want to be focusing on those easily digestible, quick carbohydrates with potentially a small amount of protein to keep you going, and having these at least 30 to 60 minutes before your activity. So some examples, again, all of them are very simple, carbohydrate focused, things that don't need to take any sort of significant preparation time. So an English muffin with peanut butter and jelly, crackers and cheese, or a cheese stick if you don't want to cut up the cheese. Applesauce, whether it's the cups or the go-go squeezes. Always packing shelf stable snacks like trail mix or granola bars or dried fruit. Or something as simple as a bowl of cereal and milk, something that will kind of not sit in your stomach too long where it weighs you down during your workout or your training or practice, but again, is still something um, significant before your workout. And then just as a reminder too, to avoid those high fat, high fiber foods right before your training. We really want to save those for the performance plate meals that we have a couple hours in advance of our training. Reason being is that they are slower to digest, so our body won't be able to utilize them for fuel efficiently. Similar idea to post-workout recovery on the go. If we're not able to fuel within an hour of with a full meal within an hour of our workouts or our training or game, this is when we're going to want to again pack those snacks or meals that are either shelf stable or able to stay um, good in a cooler for a short period of time. So examples being, again, that chocolate milk is a perfect 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. The Greek yogurt, something simple as jerky and cheese, and carbohydrates from any sort of fruit or grapes or bananas, or even just bringing protein powder that then you can add to water right after your workout and pair that with a banana or any sort of fruit that you prefer. Just something that you make sure that you're getting that carbs and protein as soon as possible after a workout if you're not able to, again, and these are all on the go options. So now I'm going to get into travel fuel. And so this is going to be focused on how to eat well on the road. So college athletes are not always going to be on their own campus or, access to their dorm space or their apartment. And they're often faced with having to eat on the road. So I broke it up into kind of time frames in which that travel is going to take. So first being like less than an hour of travel by the bus or car. So, it's not too far of a travel for you. Um, so you can maybe have a little bit more flexibility in what you pack. So for this example, I suggest using Kool-Aid coolers or insulated lunchbox with ice pack. So, you have it cold for a longer period of time. So this is a time and instance when you are able to pack both cold and room temperature items that will stay safe for this amount of time. If we are traveling by bus or car for at least 2 to 5 hours, which I know is a common thing for college athletes, you can still use those coolers and ice packs up to 5 hours of travel time. Um, don't consume cold foods if they haven't been kept cold for more than 5 hours, obviously a food safety issue. And then packing non-perishables in case of traffic or travel delays. We all know that can happen. And even if we're anticipating a 4-hour ride, sometimes it turns into 5 or 6. And, we want to be almost overly prepared with, both cold items that you can eat within a safe time frame, but then also those non-perishables that in case time goes over that safe window. And then there will be times when we're traveling for multiple days. And this is when we are going to prioritize packing a sufficient amount of those non-perishable foods. It may not be the most feasible to pack cold foods, cold items if you're not going to have access to a mini fridge or any sort of cool storage for a longer period of time. And so packing those adequate amount of room temperature items is going to be more impactful. And then being able to add and provide and purchase cold foods on the road. So to break down again some examples of those cold food and room temperature items that can be some good go-tos as just a list um, that you can kind of refer to. Oops. So cold food items being like Greek yogurt, string cheese, hummus, and veggies, some sort of deli turkey or deli meat, chicken salad, a pre-cut fruit salad, pasta salad, turkey and cheese roll-ups, or hard-boiled eggs. So things that again are very easy and nothing that takes too much time to prepare and gather, but again will be needed to travel in some sort of cooler with an ice pack. And then room temperature items really are going to be something to the degree of peanut butter and jellies, crackers, pita bread, pretzels, goldfish. You can make banana bread or just simple things purchased like animal crackers, trail mix, beef or turkey jerky, and then fruits and protein bars and granola bars. So again, being able to over prepare yourself, as sometimes I think, it's always important to pack more than you think you might eat because again, those travel delays may happen and there's always something unpredictable with travel that we want to be prepared for. And two, if there is, typically on a longer day of travel or a multi-day travel meal, athletes and teams will go out to restaurants or they'll get takeout or they'll stop by some convenience fast food restaurant for a meals or a post-game recovery meal. So that could look like something to the degree of, Chipotle, or I hear Chick-fil-A a lot, and any sort of sub shop or bagel shop, of there's it's usually dependent on what is available. And rather than being able to, it's often kind of you get what you get based on the area that you're in. So things that we can do instead of just getting whatever's on the menu, kind of being able to navigate the good options that might be more beneficial as an athlete. So things to look for in the food items would be either some sort of whole grain sub roll or bread, getting a side salad or side of fruit, choosing the oil-based salad dressings over the creamy ones. Again, depending on the timing of your eating, whether it's before games or after games, not being mindful of portion sizes, or, if you get a larger meal, having um, half before, half after. Again, it's totally going to depend on timing of your meals, choosing meals that includes vegetables, of course, choosing lean proteins like grilled chicken, turkey, fish, lean beef, beans, and eggs. So rather than like the high fat meat choices that may weigh you down in the game. And then thinking about the way that those proteins or just food ingredients are cooked in general. Usually, it's a good call to look out for the words like grilled or steamed or baked, broiled, even instead of like, fried or something to that degree. I think it can really shift the nutrient quality of the meal you choose based on the way that it's cooked. And then just again, focusing on balanced meals, remembering that performance plate. So kind of doing a brief check is like, okay, do I have carbs? Do I have protein? Do I have healthy fats? And do I have some sort of color in these meals that I'm choosing? Um, and then on the other side, things we want to limit, maybe when we're out purchasing meals from a restaurant or fast food, um, trying to avoid the fried options as much as possible. Same with like the high fat, creamy salad dressings, just because, again, of that higher fat content that may not be the most ideal choice for before a game. Um, Kind of wanting to refrain from the spicy and garlicky foods. Sometimes, again, these can be upsetting to the stomach and, not necessarily settle very well. Um, Kind of avoiding excess caffeinated beverages. Again, we want to stay in the limits of the allowed amounts within the NCAA. Trying to limit pastries and sweet baked goods in replacement of a meal or a snack. Again, I want to kind of reiterate that those pastries or sweet baked goods aren't necessarily, you want to completely avoid them. I think that I think it's always a better choice to have them in addition to something that's more healthful and nutrient focused that's going to support your fueling. And so getting that alongside, your meal or snack rather than in place of it. Trying to stay away from the soda and sugar sweetened beverages that aren't necessarily going to support your hydration, the candy and just in general foods you've never tried before. Um, because again, we never know how things may affect us. It's maybe less common, but it is possible that travel will include flying. And so airplane snacks in travel again is going to be a really important focus. So when we're flying, it's actually really possible for us to get dehydrated at a quicker rate. Being in the air, it has to do something with like the air pressure and degree at how high up we are. So always having water or some sort of electrolyte beverages on the plane is super critical. And again, of course, depending on how long the plane ride is, whether it's an hour or a couple hours, we're always going to want to have packed snacks. So whether they're things you can get through the TSA check line that aren't, liquids, having those in your bags is really important, or making good choices in the airport for purchasing. So again, kind of reiterating those, avoiding the sugar sweetened beverages, candies, etc., and trying to get some sort of nutritious choice from the airport. So to go alongside with that kind of airport choices, a lot of times maybe the only option is to be stopping at some sort of gas station or a corner store. I think there is opportunity in most places that you go to find some sort of healthful choice. So maybe that looks cold food would be some of those that I've shared in previous slides. I think I see a lot at gas stations like hummus cups or pickles or veggie sticks, fruit cups and hard-boiled eggs, yogurt and string cheese. Something that has again like some sort of protein and carbohydrates that will provide you that healthful energy to either recover or prepare for your game. Um, Choosing beverages like a bottled protein shake, seltzer waters, sports drinks, 1% or chocolate milk, coconut waters, iced tea, 100% fruit juice, or those fruit smoothies that they have. And then again, also too, there's usually a pretty solid selection of shelf-stable snacks. So gravitating towards something like trail mix or jerky or dried fruit, popcorn, even corn chips or pretzels, sunflower seeds for some protein and healthy fats, things like that. And then again, limiting those, what if it's the hot foods or cold foods, something like the fried foods or hot dogs, taquitos, burgers, nachos, all the things that you normally see in the warmer that isn't necessarily going to be very nutrient dense or supportive of your athletic performance. Um, Trying to stay away from those energy drinks that often contain a really high amount of caffeine, sodas, slushies, high sugar teas and coffees, fruit punch and or milkshakes that may not sit very well. Again, just those beverages that aren't necessarily going to support your hydration status. And then shelf-stable snacks, again, those sugary choices like donuts and snack cakes and cookies and brownies and things like that. Again, just all things that I think we all know maybe not might not be the most helpful choice from a gas station. I think it's always important to remember that, we are on the road and it's not necessarily huge amount of options, but we still are on an athletic trip, so we need to be focused on ways to support our performance. Say on those trips you're staying in a hotel breakfast and they have a continental breakfast. Again, it's going to depend on the hotel and what they offer, but typically these are the things that they offer on a usual basis. Usually you can find something like oatmeal or yogurt or fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, a bagel even, and peanut butter and cream cheese, breakfast potatoes, hard-boiled eggs. So again, just balancing out with having those healthful foods with carbohydrates, protein, healthy fats, and color. I'll keep saying it. And then limiting those fried cooking methods, the highly processed meats, pastries, the sweet baked goods, um, and all of those things that, again, alongside those healthful choices are often always available as well. So, like I mentioned, maybe having those in addition to the healthful options if you do want them. And I won't necessarily read through this whole snack list, but it is a breakdown of kind of those go-to snacks that by macronutrient that are usually available on the road or easy to pack for yourself. So it breaks down into simple, complex carbs, protein, healthy fats, color, and hydration. So, based on this entire summer of all the sessions that I've discussed in, macronutrients and what they're good for and why we need them and when to have them, these are going to be kind of examples of those options in snack form. So, hey, that's it for me today. Thank you for sitting and listening and being here all summer with me. I really appreciate your support this summer, and I'll stop the recording. If
Thanks,
anyone
Olivia. Great
has
job.
any questions, please let me know.